That smell, that taste, that feeling of being human again. For a soldier at the front, coffee was a memory. And when it was gone, the memory became an obsession, so they got creative. Coffee was a universal currency of comfort in WWII. But supply lines broke, ships were sunk, and priorities shifted. When the real thing was gone, soldiers turned to the land itself to recreate that essential ritual. This is the story of the soldier's brew. Brew 1, acorn coffee. The mighty oak, a symbol of strength and endurance, offered its fruit. But acorns are not a simple substitute. Raw, they are loaded with bitter, astringent tannins that make them unpalatable and hard to digest. The first crucial step, learned through trial and error, was to leach these tannins out. Soldiers would shell the nuts, often using the butt of a rifle or a rock, and then boil the kernels, sometimes changing the water multiple times. They would watch as the water turned dark brown, carrying the bitterness away. Then roast, grind, and brew. Hot, bitter, caffeine-free comfort. The roasting process was key. Too little, and the drink was weak and vegetal. Too much, and it tasted of pure charcoal. Soldiers learned to roast them slowly until they were dark and brittle, smelling nutty and smoky. After a crude grinding, the grounds were steeped in hot water. The resulting brew was surprisingly robust. It was intensely bitter, yes, but it was hot, dark, and held in a cup. It looked the part, and as a soldier wrapped his cold hands around that mug, he received a jolt of warmth and a taste that was just enough to trick the mind. It was a placebo, but a powerful one. Brew 2, chicory root, a long European tradition. This wasn't a new invention. Using roasted chicory as a coffee extender or substitute dates back centuries in Europe, particularly in France during the Napoleonic era when blockades cut off coffee supplies. The knowledge was passed down through generations and was quickly revived during the shortages of WWII. Soldiers, especially those fighting on the European continent, would have seen civilians harvesting the familiar blue-flowered plant along roadsides and in fields. Roasted root brews dark and earthy, coffee-like in color and bite. The process was similar to that for acorns. The root was washed, chopped, and then roasted low and slow until it was dark, brittle, and smelled intensely rich. When ground and brewed, chicory produced a liquid that was remarkably similar to coffee in appearance. It had a deep, almost black color and a strong, earthy bitterness without the acidity of real coffee. It even formed a slight crema on top. For soldiers lucky enough to find it, chicory was the gold standard of coffee substitutes. It was a taste of something civilized, a complex flavor in a world of bland rations. Brew 3, grain coffee, barley or rye taken right to the edge. When roots weren't available, soldiers turned to the fields themselves. Grains like barley, rye, and even wheat were staple crops and often accessible. The trick was in the roast. The grains had to be roasted far beyond what would be used for bread or beer, taken to the very brink of incineration. This process, known as pyrolysis, breaks down the starches and proteins, creating complex, bitter, and smoky flavor compounds. In a pinch, even burnt bread steeped into a thin, grainy tea. Brew 4, dandelion root, chicory's humble cousin. Brew 4, dandelion root, chicory's humble cousin. The ubiquitous dandelion, often seen as a common weed, became a source of hope. Its persistence in growing even in the most devastated landscapes was a metaphor for the soldiers themselves. Like chicory, its long taproot could be harvested, roasted, and ground. While the flavor was generally considered milder and more earthy than chicory, it was readily available almost everywhere, from the fields of France to the parks of captured German cities. Even in blasted fields, roots meant heat, bitterness, and a hint of normal. The act of digging for these roots was grounding, literally. It connected a soldier to the earth. The process of transforming a muddy, gnarled root into a hot, dark drink was a small miracle of creation in a world dedicated to destruction. The resulting brew might not have fooled a connoisseur, but it checked the essential boxes. It was hot, It was bitter, and it was something they had made with their own hands. It was a small victory, a moment of normalcy stolen from the jaws of chaos. It wasn't about the drink, it was about the ritual. This is the crucial truth at the heart of the soldier's brew. The final product was almost secondary. The true value lay in the process. In a life dictated by orders, where personal agency was stripped away, the ritual of making a brew was a small pocket of control. It was a sequence of deliberate, predictable actions. Find the source, prepare the ingredient, apply the heat, wait for the infusion. Foraging, roasting, brewing, moments that held the mind together. These tasks required focus. A soldier out looking for chicory roots wasn't just thinking about the enemy, he was observing the ground, identifying plants, engaged in a peaceful, productive hunt. The act of roasting required patience and attention, a delicate dance with the fire. These were moments of mindfulness, forced upon them by necessity, that provided a temporary escape from the anxiety and boredom that were the twin companions of a soldier's life. It was a way to mark time, to break up the endless, terrifying monotony. Hands warmed, spirits steadied. The physical effect was immediate. The simple transfer of heat from the cup to frozen fingers was a profound relief. It chased away the damp chill that seeped into a soldier's bones. But the psychological effect was even more significant. The ritual provided a sense of order. The warmth provided a sense of comfort. And sharing the brew provided a sense of connection. It was a quiet affirmation of community, a silent understanding that passed between men who were enduring the unendurable together. These brews were about living, not just fighting. Comfort, routine, the familiar. War is an exercise in survival, but survival is more than just staying alive. It's about holding on to the parts of yourself that make you human. The soldier's brew, in all its bitter, imperfect forms, was a tool for that. It was a deliberate act of creating comfort where there was none. It was the establishment of a routine in a world of chaos. And it was a connection, however faint, to the familiar, civilized world they had left behind. It was a way of saying, I am more than my weapon. I am more than my uniform. I am still a person who enjoys a hot cup in the morning. The soldier's brew wasn't perfection. It was perseverance. It was a testament to the enduring human need for ritual and comfort, a story written in smoke, steam, and the bitter taste of the earth. It proves that even in the darkest of times, we will find a way to create a small island of warmth, to perform a simple act of living, and to hold on to the hope of a better morning.